Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the live episode of the Butterfly Evolution Radio Show and Relationship Table Talk. Thank you guys for choosing us on this beautiful Tuesday evening. I am so excited about my special guest because he has a dear place in my heart. He is family. So we've been working or talking about this for quite a while now, and it has finally happened. And I am a true believer, and seemingly more and more every day, that God's timing is God's timing. Because on the day, I haven't shared this with you, I'm gonna call you Lil Will, Big Will, Lil Will, whatever. You'll see a Lil Will to me. It was so timely because I had just had a conversation with someone, a young lady who is very dear to me. I won't put her name out there unless since she's going to be listening, unless she gives me the okay. But we had just had a conversation, and you came back with something that I could take back to her and share. It was like written, planned, divine intervention. I was able to say, she's right there in Atlanta. So it was just, it was amazing how God just dropped another answer for her. And I'm going to share our conversation, what took place and how it took place, and then how the comeback from you allowed me to share more with her, because our conversation was done. And I just sent the message that you had sent to me. I said, look, I just got this. And she said, wow. So I just believe in God's timing and for his people, for all people, because we're all his people. So thank you for reaching out, being obedient, and following through, because I do believe it is time, is this season for this reason, that reason, if nothing else. So Lil Will, thank you. We'll get the introduction in here in just a minute. You guys, Rodney may or may not be on with us tonight. Our little Pooh is under the weather. So he may jump on and he may not. And that's Nadia, his little girl, for those of you who may not know. Want to remind you, if you are a first-time listener, what we are about. I am really big on, and let me get this out. I have not always been the communicator that I am now. I truly believe that without communication, you have nothing. And this particular topic tonight, intentions, attention, it is more about, I think everything that we go through is about what we've said and perhaps what we did not say. And we are good at saying, I'm going to say maybe the right thing at the wrong time, maybe the right thing in the wrong tone, the wrong way, or maybe not at all, or saying it to the wrong person. So in every topic that we bring before you guys, I think most of it always, if not all of it, leads back to how we communicate. Is it effectively, or are we communicating from a wounded place? Are we doing life from a wounded place? And if we just would sit down for just a minute with ourselves and allow God to show us who we are, we will realize that there's always areas in our life that we need to improve on and deal with the reality of that thing without taking it on with us into our future, into our present. So Butterfly Evolution is about learning to own your own stuff, dealing with you, dealing with your reality, helping to change your perception of what your reality is or what it has become. And in doing so, we have this thing, Will, I don't know if you've heard this before, but we have this thing we call our trash can baby, because we want to remind you guys to be forever open to changing. You have to be, especially if you are a person that believes in purpose, and your steps are ordered, and not by us, not by me. I may think they are. I've heard that you say we make plans and God laughs. Like, if you only knew what's ahead, what's in store. We have to be prepared to deal with change. The seasons change, we grow. The people we love change and grow. So nothing stays the same. Not on this side. Nothing stays the same. So we ask that people move their trash can, a trash can that they visit frequently. When I was introduced to this, it was mind blowing, because I would for a long time, go back to the place that I personally moved my garbage can from to dump my trash. Although I'm the one moved it, I know I've moved it to a new location. I go back to where I moved it from. How does that apply to life? It's so easy to go back to what we know, even if it's painful. There's something about being in a place that we know that soothes us. And that sounds crazy, but you guys, we do it. We run from the very things that we want because we bring so much baggage with us. We stay there. And so when you move that trash can and you find yourself going back to it, you have to ask yourself, why? Why am I going back? And I know I've moved it. I've had cases where people would pass the garbage can where it is now to get there. Think about that to get to the old place. Think about that as life. How often we pass things by just because they're new, just because they make us feel, they make us think, they require that we change. But we want to stay, we want to go back because it takes work. It takes work to transform your life. It does. And in that transformation, what we're talking about tonight as it relates to relationships, I truly believe this, you guys, with all that I am, all that I will be, that there are so many people that are not together, not because they don't love each other, but because they've never quite learned how to love each other. And there is a difference. I can love you, but if I don't understand who you are or attempt to or try to, especially your intentions, before you give me the attention, that causes additional pain to us. So finding out anyone's, whether it's, I know we're going to make this more about the girls, the ladies tonight, and that to me in itself still is divine intervention and purpose as well, because so much lies. The word says to treat us as the lesser, but not because we are less. Not less than any man. It's just that we're built different. Emotionally, physically, there's so many things that make us different, but we're on the same journey. It says the weaker. We're the weaker. I think I said less. I don't want anybody to think that's what I mean. So it's in the Bible. It's there. But I think we try to, I want to just say it. I'm gonna speak for ladies, for myself. I think we compare ourselves to men too much. And sometimes we try to be the man when we weren't wired to be. And so there's a lot to say in this discussion tonight. So Will, welcome, and tell the audience as much about yourself as you'd like to. I put your bio out there, but just kind of tell us life up to now, where you're going, what you're doing, and I'll share after that how this topic became so dear to me. And if I may, just read a little bit of what you said without sharing too much about the story that it came from, or maybe you can share that part.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I have no problem doing that. Before I kind of give an intro, because I think it's important that when you're listening to someone speak, you have some type of background on them, or you have some type of basis of the direction that they're going in, or the foundation of what they're speaking from. So before I jump into that, I do have to touch base on what, and I'm going to call you Auntie Tammy because that's what I've always called you. So, and what Auntie Tammy said, the word does say the weaker vessel, but what I caught from what you were saying, and I appreciate what you said, Auntie, was the fact of the matter, it's not a lesser than, it's not a weaker than, it's more so different roles. So if you understand that that from a female standpoint, from a male standpoint, we're just placed here for different roles. If you go deeper into the Old Testament, it gives you those roles. If you understand what a Psalms 31 woman is, it give you those roles. And sometimes in a need situation, the woman will pick up what she needs to do to make sure the household is taken care of. And, sometimes I think now in today's age, we've kind of ventured away from that only to be in competition with one another. So that was another thing that I took from what you said. One of the biggest reasons that we have this connotation, and it might be more so from a female standpoint because males don't feel this way as being the male, other than being maybe a little insecure about being that provider, I would say. But outside of that, it's just the woman wants to have this power, have this standard, have this status as a man to say, only to say, I don't need a man. And I can tell you, we're not going to touch base on that, but I can tell you this is just not how it was made to be. Not saying that you can't be without a man, but to say you don't need a man is two totally different things. Based on what the word tells us. But a little bit about myself, and I haven't said this on a public platform in this particular manner. Was, I'm from Tallahassee, Florida. Born in another country town, but born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida. I was born in the Bible Belt. That should tell you a little bit about my religious background, because it's almost, you're kind of struck by it. It's like either you're gonna be a Christian or we're gonna cast you out, and that's kind of how the Bible Belt works. But from that standpoint, I was able to develop my own personal relationship with God. I have 3 degrees. One of my biggest focus is relational. Most of my the jobs and the occupations and the careers that I've had, going from one in sales, is all relational. People buy from people. So from that development of working with people, different types of personalities, different types of people from all walks on this earth, it just taught me how to adapt. And in that adaptation, it created this ideal of what I believe the world is missing from a relational standpoint. And my biggest premise is love. The biggest premise that the world is devoid of love. And Webster tells us, if you Google the definition of love, it just tells us that love is a strong affection for someone. Now, the funny thing about that is, for you be able to Google what the definition of love is, and then for you to know what the definition of love is based on God's love in the Bible, it's a little bit of a, what's the word I want to use? It causes a little bit of conflict, because what we're now moving into in today's age is, because we have all these variations of what should have one meaning, now people have multiple meanings, and we have multiple meanings for multiple reasons. Experience. How were you loved as a child? If anyone has read the 5 love languages, Gary Chapman kind of touches on the fact of the matter that the way and the love that you were given as a child plays a large role on how you give and receive love, and also how successful you are as an adult, how responsible you are as an adult. And that's what the studies tell us. So if that's the understanding and we don't have a basis of understanding, and I'm going to touch base on what I mean by that, is how can two walk unless they agree? So if you can't walk anywhere without coming to agreement about which way you're walking or what direction you're going in, it's like driving a car with 2 steering wheels. We got to move the steering wheel in the same direction in order for us to go in the right direction. Otherwise, we're going to split the car apart, if that was possible. But with that being the case, what we have is a world where we don't have the same definition of love. So when you come into a relationship, or when you're trying to start a relationship, you're looking for something that your partner has no idea what you're looking for. And that already starts the foundation or the basis of the relationship, and you don't recognize it right then, so you keep going. And I'm not just saying you have to be a Christian or Buddhist, or you have to be a part of the Nation of Islam to understand this. It's more so the understanding of making sure that your foundation is the same, and therefore you can move forward with that person. But if we don't do that, and the basis of the relationship is off of maybe sex, maybe money, maybe affection, attention, whatever the premise of that relationship and whatever brought that relationship together is going to be the basis moving forward. Now, once that starts to change, then you're going to have this disruption. So yet again, my biggest premise is love. Now, one thing I've come to understand is, to be totally honest, is everyone can't grasp the concept of love as a whole and say, I'm going to attach to the same definition. Someone might not want to take the definition as what Corinthians tells us. So instead of using the word love, we say appreciation. We say consideration. The world is devoid of consideration. One of the simplest ways, like Auntie was alluding to, is the fact of the matter is, you might not know how to love. That person might not know how to love you. And the love that you think you're giving them, you think you're doing the right thing. However, you're not taking everything into consideration. And a lot of times, the way we love is selfishly based. Amen. Based on the way that we love, based on the way we saw love. sometimes we didn't receive love, but we saw it maybe with our parents. If we didn't see it with our parents, maybe we saw it with our grandparents. If we see it with our grandparents, maybe an auntie, an uncle, a friend, another relationship that you looked at that relationship and you say, that's what love is. And to Auntie's point, sometimes we say that's what love is, even when you're in an abusive relationship, whether it
Mm.
be physically abusive or verbally abusive, that's what you know. So sometimes you go back to the trash can because that comfort is in knowing, not in actual comfort, not in actual peace, not in actual tranquility. It's the fact of the matter that because I know what I'm dealing with, I'm willing to go back to it. And that creates this disruption of what I'm going to get to later on is we're going to touch on the reasons relationships don't work. And sometimes we don't know we cause trauma for ourselves within a
Mm.
relationship because we're not taking enough time to be considerate or find out what that love is for that person or how can we build that for us.
I need you to say
So
that. I know you may not do word from word, but say that part again about the trauma. I call it self-inflicted trauma, but say that part again about the trauma.
So in trauma, a lot of times what we tend to gravitate towards is the comfortability of knowing what it is. No matter if it's a traumatizing situation, because we're comfortable with it, we're willing to go
Mm.
back to it because we
Mm.
say, well, the phrase, what is it? The devil I know is better than the devil that I don't. But why we got to have devils in the
Devil's
equation
anyway.
anyway?
Exactly. In a relationship,
So,
especially where there should be love and affection and compassion. Exactly.
and sometimes we stay into relationships for the wrong reasons, and that's one of the reasons. The comfortability. We're too afraid to be uncomfortable to find exactly what we want, and that's where we get the we're too afraid to succeed. But chase it. One of the things that I've come to understand, being that another piece of my background, being that now I've been through a divorce, and I openly say that, but and I will openly say whatever questions anybody want to ask me in that particular regard, I will say this candidly and openly. I did everything that I could to try to make that situation work, even having to be the bearer of every financial uh, opportunity. I'm going to say fell on me because I chose to be the provider in the situation, knowing, not knowing fully the situation of my spouse at that particular time, but wanted to pick up the reins to do what I felt was right to make the relationship work. But one of the things we have to come to understand that in relationship, we have to be real with ourselves. And I had a moment during that relationship or during the short term of that marriage where, Will, what would you tell yourself? Because a lot of
Mm.
people come to me for answers. A lot of people ask me what they should do in their relationship, their marriage, or whatever the case may be. But what would you tell yourself? And I had to have, like we say, a come to Jesus meeting. Like this is not going to work because we only get one life. And because of that one life, you can't waste it in a situation where you're not fully happy, or you're not fully loved, or you're not being fully appreciated, or you're not fully considerated. And to put yourself through that with the option to, when you always have a choice, just like salvation is a choice, why do it? Why do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think something you just said is very, very important. It
You see that?
reminds me about asking when you said, "What would you tell yourself?" I've used with women and men. What would you tell your daughter if she was coming to you in this situation? Especially it works for ladies because it takes them a step back. Like if you saw your daughter in this situation and she came to you for advice, what would you tell her? Because whatever you would tell her is what you need to tell yourself, because
Hmm.
relationships are just that. But sometimes we take ourselves out of the equation as it relates to that. um so I want to go back to, I'm going to share the story that I had with a young lady. She was sharing about, I think I'm in a relationship basically. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she says, well, I feel like I am the one that I'm always trying to make the time to help us see each other. I'm always suggesting, why don't we do this? Why don't you come over? And that kind of thing. And I said, well, have you asked him what does the relationship to him? What, because sometimes it just relationship, or someone just may want to date you. They may not be
Hmm.
serious, but because you have not asked the questions, you've just not required much of him or her. You've not communicated that, hey, this is what I want. Because some people think, and you can help me on this as well, that we should not share so much initially about what we want out of this relationship. Now, being this age and in this season of my life, I think the sooner the better, that you get an understanding of intentions before you give attention, as you said there. So I asked, have you asked him, are you in a relationship, and what does relationship mean to him? Because it just may be a matter of differences. And she says, no, I have not. We've not talked about it. So sometimes we're just assuming that because we are dating or whatever, that we are in a relationship, and someone else may be thinking, hey, we're just messing around. And so yes, and then even if we had those conversations and got the understanding before, we have this thing, this is one of Trent's saying, before the sweat dries. Because after the sweat dries, then you got a whole lot of other connections that are happening. Yeah. It takes it to a whole nother level. So if we can even think about, before you get my attention, and this can go both ways, it should go both ways, because we have some guys looking for that same type of relationship, that committed relationship, as we think women are. There's some guys looking for that as well, and they're getting played or have been played because they didn't have that conversation. So, and then you mentioned, I'll let you tell the story about someone that you were talking to and how this came about.
Okay, so I'm going to tie it back. So I'm going to tie I'm going to tie it back. And the only reason, the main reason I'm going to tie it back, because some of the things that I'm going to talk about this evening, I did a little bit of research on it, because I know when Auntie and I were talking about what to talk about on or speak about on the podcast, it was like, okay, well, I want to make sure it's as effective and as, beneficial to everyone listening as it possibly can be. So I asked her, I was like, so what is some of the things, if you were talking to me, if you didn't know me, but you knew that I would be a person that you come ask a question, a relational question to, what is something as a female you want to hear? What is something as a female you would need to hear or need to know? Because some of the stuff you learn through, a lot of the stuff you learn through experience, and through that experience you gain that wisdom and you mature. So to Auntie's point, and I'm going to tie this back in. So one of the things that was mentioned through that research that needed to be spoken on would be the princess mentality. And when I said this, Auntie was like, I don't understand what the princess mentality exactly is. So what the princess mentality is, male and females as children, they're raised differently. As the idea of a little girl gets what she wants, one, two, the male is raised, you have to work for what you want, at least most of us. Most of us, if it's to a point where you want something as a child, you understand the idea, like I have to do a chore or something like that to obtain the things that I want from a male standpoint, because it's trying to teach this idea of working to provide. You put in some work, you get something in return that allows you to provide to your family as a male. When it comes to a lot of women, regardless of if they were spoiled or not, they are taught they can have whatever they want, even if they have it or not. Because what happens is, let's use not having it. So if you don't have what you want as a young girl, or what you yearn for, desire for in that particular time, a lot of those times, what ends up happening is when you become an adult, now you are forcibly trying to get what you have because you feel like you deserve that. You feel like all of your friends, if they were spoiled, you never had that experience as a child. So I am due that experience because I'm a princess too. I'm a queen too. I should be able to have what I want as well. Well, in turn, what happens is it creates this selfish mindset, right? So when you get into the example that Auntie gave, sometimes women don't ask questions that particular from that particular standpoint, because they're like, well, I'm getting what I want, and if I want him, then I still have him, but I don't know if I really have him. I just know he's here. So because I'm choosing him to have him, I'm not fully thinking through the dynamic of what that is. How do I have him? Do I have him sexually? Do I have him mentally? Do I have him emotionally? Do I have him committed? What is that commitment, especially in today's age? What is that commitment? And a lot of times the princess mentality kicks in because it's kind of like, I want what I want when I want it. And even when you get good advice and somebody tells you that's not good for you, you're like, well, I want it anyways. And it's because I've already had it. And to at this point, now you've already laid down. Now this all is complicated because now you're going to either forcibly have it the way you wanted to have it, or now it's just going to be one of those instances, as I'm going to touch base on later, as one of the top reasons relationships don't work is because of trauma. And this is one of those self-inflicted wounds. If you find out in a situation to where it's not going in the direction, the desire that you would like to go in, then you should remove yourself from it because y'all not on the same page. It's something that y'all not communicating. It's something that y'all not talking about, or y'all don't both believe in. So it's something that you need to remove yourself from. Don't allow the either spoiled mentality or need to be spoiled mentality to remove your, I would say, your thought process, your process of elimination of understanding, like, hey, my woman's intuition is telling me I need to have this conversation. I keep putting it off because I don't want to make him uncomfortable, but you're unable to sleep at night. So who is that fair to? And due to that, as a woman, y'all handle emotions differently. Y'all carry them differently. It's not a bad thing. It's actually, love is one of the greatest strengths of a woman. If you utilize the love that you're able to give and hold it tight, you'll be able to differentiate between the dudes that you need to have in your life and the dudes you don't need to have in your life, because you don't need anybody there that's going to take advantage of you because you have that love to give. And that was one of the things that I've always said. As a woman, don't be afraid to love. To Auntie's point, get out what it is that you need to know, what it is that you desire on the front end, because as we all know, people say, okay, well, I had the representative for like 3 months. I didn't know how this guy truly was because the representative was here from like 3 to 6 months. Now, at 6 months and 1 day, it was like a totally different guy. Like, I didn't know who this was. And it's probably at that particular time also that he truly found out what it is that you were trying to obtain from him. So he was trying to find a way to avoid it. And it was like, okay, either I can be not making time for you, or I can always seem busy, or I can try to make the conversation so shallow that you never get the answer to the question that you truly want to hear, and continue to drag it along. Now, the caveat to this is it's not just women anymore. It's not just women anymore that are in this particular circumstance or in this particular situation, because now we have gender swapping. And what I mean by that is not necessarily somebody going to having a procedure and becoming a man to woman, a woman to man. No, I mean because women are trying so hard to alleviate pain by saying, oh, okay, well, if men can do it, we can do it too. But can you? Because emotionally, you have to be in the same place, the same genetic makeup.
Can you define? You said do it. What is it?
So be emotionless.
Okay.
We men
Okay.
tend to say, okay, well, we come off apathetic or indifferent or not caring or very harsh. And now women in today's age, especially millennials and below, is like, I'm making a conscious effort to act like I don't care about anything. Like, I don't care. This is what I want, and I won't catch any feelings from it. And that just half the time from experience is just because you haven't met the dude that's going to make you care about it. And then as soon as that goes left, you're going to go back, you're going to revert back to the fact of saying that I don't care about it at all, opposed to changing your approach. And that approach is just be honest with yourself. Why are you not being honest with yourself? Like, if you're soft from the standpoint of you're emotional about every little thing that happens to you, then embrace it. That means you have to be more intentional about, hey, why are you here? What are you doing here? What are your intentions with me? So something from the standpoint of what Auntie wants me to share. So I was having a conversation with someone. I heard a story about a young lady that was dating a gentleman that was 8 years older than her. And she was head over heels for the guy. It was like, oh my gosh, I've never known chivalry to this particular extent, and he's doing this, which is different from all the other guys that I've talked to in my particular age group or my peers or whatever the case may be, and I'm really enjoying this interaction. Now, the first thing that I said in response was to the fact of the age difference. One thing that we have to understand, yeah, from a provider standpoint, from a security standpoint, somebody that's a little bit older from a male standpoint is probably going to be a little bit more not well off, a little bit more established. Doesn't mean he has a lot of money. It just means that he's established and he has stability in the fact that, okay, I know where I'm making my money from. I know where I'm working. I know what kind of car I'm driving. I know what I want for my life. And it comes out in conversation. The difference between that and a younger guy is he has no idea. And younger women, you tend to gravitate towards it because it sounds good. It sounds like security. But that's also one of the ways that men use that to be able to draw young women in. Okay. Now, in regards to that particular story, my next point was, well, tell her, make sure his intentions match her attention. His intentions match her attention. And what I mean by that is you can literally date somebody for years and not be in a relationship. And male or female, eventually over time you're going to have feelings. Like there's an investment of time in this particular person, and because of that, now you can't get that time back. Time is the one thing that we can't get back. So when it boils down to making sure that his intentions are right with her attentions because of the age gap, you have to know what he wants from you. I think he was going, I'm gonna say he was 42. No, it wasn't that. She was 22 and he was 38, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was a gap. It was a large enough gap to where they were in two different generations with two different thought processes. And with that being the case, in a circumstance like that, whether there's an age gap or not, if you're spending time with somebody, you need to know why is it that you're spending time with them, not only from them, but from yourself. And if the reason that y'all are spending time together does not agree or does not match, then y'all need to have a real conversation. And it doesn't matter how long you're into it. Like my current relationship right now, and I promise to you now, we probably had we literally passed a year. And what was that? Was before then, or was that after I got out? It was because I had the car. So it would have been 2.5 months ago. I prayed about it and I said, if we're not on the same page about the direction that we want the relationship to go in and understand that this is the dynamic of love and love that's needed in a relationship, then it's not supposed to be. And to a lot of people, investing a year into someone where you're only spending that time with that one someone is a lot, because from a selfish standpoint, especially when you're younger, you're like, well, I could be doing this and that and the third with him, her, whomsoever. But from the standpoint of trying to eliminate a waste of time, make sure you have that conversation on the front end. Get everything out. If you have, that did just touch on me, but that's a little sensitive. If you have, I'm not saying divulge all your financial issues, all of your family issues. What is simply being said is, what is the reason that we're talking, and what is the direction we want to go in, and what is the end result. If you don't have if the man doesn't have a vision for you in the relationship or in the dating phase, then you shouldn't be with him because he hasn't thought about it. So if you ask him a question as to where you see us going and he can't answer that question, you're in trouble. I'm telling you now, you're in trouble. And unless he could come back and actually, because there's going to be a change of behavior too, because my behavior is going to match my intention. Sometimes that behavior is going to match from a dating standpoint as if my intention is to have sex. That's how men are. That's how women are, because women have intention to have sex as well. It's just not being said as much as it's cascaded on males. But it's sex drive either way it goes. So without that conversation, people tend to assume what it is based on the interaction or what they like about this person, and it gets us into circumstances like, no baby is an accident, but in the same token, do you want to have a baby with somebody you're dating that you really don't know and they have no intentions for you? So
do you
that's
think
why
that women about the sex and the love, about the sex part, do you think that women, you said that women have the intentions of having sex as well, but do you think that they have it for they think about having it for different reasons? Do they equate in this time sex as being in relationship, even though they haven't had the conversation and have know that they're in or have asked those questions? Once they have sex, do you think that women for the most part think we're in a relationship?
for the most part, Okay, I think this is what I think. I think if you ask a woman that, they're going to say no. And the reason that I say this is because when you ask a question, usually that's when a lot of times that's when the logic kicks in, and the woman's response is like, "Oh, okay, I can't really say that because we haven't had the conversation." However, emotionally is already checked in. It's like,
Right.
okay, I'm already attached to you. You just don't know it because we have had sex, and it's like yeah, we have had sex. So emotionally, I'm checked in. Logically, I can't say that we're in a relationship because we haven't had the conversation. But why haven't you had the conversation? I'm not saying, and I'm even in my role right now, I don't know what he is doing. But even in my role right now, I'm not going to say that the relationship is the prerequisite to sex. It's just not being realistic. Like, I just don't think that that's realistic in today's
Mhm.
age, and no age, to be totally honest with you. That it's a prerequisite to being in a relationship. However, if you're going to attach to somebody emotionally, meaning that you're going to allow them to have the chance to hurt you, you need to know what their intentions are. And if y'all could be on the same page about it just being sex and really leave it there, then there shouldn't be any issues. But the problem with that is, when is that ever the case? For a long extended period of time. Maybe for a week, because you could do out of sight, out of mind. But for a long extended period of time, when you start going through things in your personal life, and now you're starting to confide in one another, that's when the emotions kick in, because now you're confiding in this person, no matter how big or small it is, and then now you have that one other time part. Now you're just spending more time. So that's my answer to that question, Auntie.
Do you okay, so what are some for the ladies, what are some ways that a woman can address intentions? How would you, as a man, how would you, if you didn't have that conversation? I personally think if I had a daughter, I would tell her, I have a granddaughter now, I would be, a man should always make it known his intentions. I feel
Hmm.
like a man who wants to do life with you will make it known as soon as possible.
Hmm.
Um, Now, that's not to say if a man doesn't, he does not have good
I'm laughing
intentions.
because I'm not to catch you off, Auntie. I'm laughing
No, you're fine.
because Glenn told me, I told her after the second date.
No, and I think, and again, I'm a bit old fashioned in that sense. In a lot of ways, I get it, but I wish we were in a time where men went to fathers or whatever male figure was in that person's life. I wish that young women had more cousins, brothers, uncles,
Hmm.
daddies in their lives to look these men in the eyes um, beforehand. And not saying that
Hmm.
they always will know, but that lets someone know that, hey, there is a man standing right by this lady.
Hmm.
Um, so what are some of the things you think, if a man does not say or speak up about his intentions to a woman who has intentions of desires to be married, have children, and do life with someone, who does not say I don't need a man, who wants a man in their life? What's something that that woman should say to this man, or should she say anything at all? Your opinion on that?
My opinion is, you should definitely, if your desire, so because of the world we live in, a lot of times, you don't know if you're going to get into a relationship with somebody that already has kids, that's been married before, or whatever it is, that whatever the experiences are beforehand. So from that intentionality standpoint, and being like purposeful about your life, is to make sure that I mean, even in the first date, like a lot of times they say, well, don't ask certain questions in on the first date. But if somebody's never been married before, one of those questions would be, do you see yourself being married? Do you see yourself having kids? Um, what is your idea of marriage? I think that's one of the things that kind of gets lost, because we have different beliefs in the world, and because of that, a lot of times you can find a disconnect, because if you don't have the same belief system, then some people don't believe in the covenant of marriage. Some people believe in the covenant of marriage, or believe in marriage, but it's only a piece of paper, and I'm attached to you from a commitment standpoint, but I'm not attached to you. So having that understanding. So do you see yourself being married? Do you see yourself having kids? Um, what is your definition? What is your idea of family? That's the other thing too. What is your idea of family? Because even if somebody sees themselves being married, even if somebody sees themselves having kids, especially from a male standpoint, because I mean we have divorce. Uh, some males like they can ask the question and say, "I see myself being married," but I don't really have an idea of family because I didn't have one. Or
Mm-hmm.
I was raised by a grandmother, I was raised by an auntie, and I don't know really what that looks like. So because of that, I can't really answer that question. So the more you ask questions, the more you have to pick and probe. Like there's no way around it. You can do it tactfully after you build that chemistry, build that relationship with the person, but whatever question comes to your mind, like in the correct tone and the correct delivery, and also being cognizant of where you are, place and time, but you need to ask those questions. If it pops in your heart to say, okay, um, I see that you have three cars. There's only one of you. What is your definition? What's your understanding of finances? Do you want to buy a house one day? Do you want to live in a house? Like these are real questions because if you have concerns or you need clarity, you need to gain that clarity in a relationship. Because if your idea from a female standpoint, and even from a male standpoint, is to sustain with this person for the rest of your life, you need to see the basis of where they are now and where they would like to go. Even though all that stuff is going to change because life is going to happen, you need to understand that this is somebody that you can rely on, depend on, understand where they're coming from. Even if you don't agree, you need to understand. I'm going to say that again. Even if you don't agree, you need to understand because sometimes agreement is agreeing to disagree.
Mm.
Sometimes you need to understand because agreeing to disagree is still an agreement. That means I understand where you're coming from. I don't necessarily agree with it, but if this situation was to come up again, I know how to handle it because I understand what you think. And a lot of people don't think that way. A lot of people go into relationships hoping and assuming that the person is going to have the same thought process, the same logic, the same approach, the same idea of family, the same time frame of marriage, the same engagement time frame, the same colors for weddings, the same bridesmaids, best man's, the amount of people that's going to be in the wedding. Like it's just this huge assumption that comes from this idea of, well, they'll like what I like.
After we get
How?
married, so to speak. Not
After,
necessarily
right.
after we get married, because all that could be absent before that day. But something happens after the I do. And I believe that we have, and I'm speaking for women, that there's this fairy tale mentality about
Hmm.
relationships, life, and love. That everything is supposed to be this picture perfect, non confrontational, um, I don't know, fairy tale that
That's the
would
princess
never change.
mentality, auntie. That's the princess mentality. It's a fairy tale. It's not real life.
And then it
It's
could be
not
the
real life.
smallest thing that will set someone off. I mean, you didn't say something on your way out the door that
Hmm.
made me feel something that was already there. So you spoke about spending the time with wasted time with people and you can't get that time back. People need to understand, rather than spending wasted time, unless you're just out kicking it, hey, I'm going to go have a drink, whatever. But if you're spending time after time after time with someone and you don't know what direction you're going, that's like the car. If you're driving
Hmm.
blindfolded, you have no idea where you're going. If you're driving with no point, um, no thought about where you are going. Meaning, if you're trying to go to California, but you don't know where California is, or you're going to
Hmm.
drive there blindfold, and you don't know where you're leaving from. That's the best one. You don't know where you're leaving from, and a lot of us,
Hmm.
we don't know who we are. So the least bit of attention from someone, a man, makes us look past his intentions. So
Hmm.
I just flipped it there. I know. So the least attention, it could be anything. I remember telling Brandon, you can say hello to a woman or hold a door for a woman and she
Hmm.
hears something different. You were just being a gentleman. You can say, hi, that you look nice, that dress looks nice. Because a woman, for the most part, women hear with their hearts, with their heart. And you can say something and she's laying in the bed that night and don't know who you are, but she remembers the guy who held the door for me and said, my shoes were nice, my dress, or my perfume smells good. So that's what I meant about our makeup is just different. And I think you hit on something by saying it's not a bad thing that we're different. We're just designed that way. We see things differently. We perceive things differently. We're emotionally wired differently. And so for us to try to say, I don't need a man, I don't want a man, is to me, it's like there's a saying said that you're not afraid of love, you're afraid of being hurt, because love is
Mm-hmm.
what you want. So it's, and you're not afraid of heights, you're afraid of falling.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to learn how to really get to know who we are so that we don't accept those who don't have the intentions that match us. Meaning, again, it's not, that doesn't mean that this guy or this girl is going to agree with everything you say. He or she is not going to like your life. I don't know if you got a chance to listen to a couple of shows a couple of weeks ago. Someone brought up the point about people. And I think people play with us a lot, men and women. We play with each other with this word about
Mm-hmm.
being selfish. And my piggyback to that now in this season of my life, I'm selfish because I'm not you-ish. So you
Mm-hmm.
want me to be you-ish, and I can't be. But that doesn't mean that you can't be selfish for yourself, meaning you have a right to want what you want, to need what you
Mm-hmm.
need. And if I want to be in a relationship with you, what you want and what you need, I'm going to make priority
Right.
without changing who I am. So often we
Consideration.
forget and we want it so bad, but we also fear it. So we play with it. We play with those emotions to keep us from dealing with our own stuff. So we have some comments. I want to get them really quickly here. Um, let's see. Kevin Lane, what are you saying here? Hi Tanya. So she says she's here, but she has Bible study, so she won't be on long. Tony says you speak truth because everyone has a slightly different love language. I'm Kevin Lang. I'm not sure what you meant about contradiction. Let's see. He says it puts undue pressure on the relationship from the start. And I'm assuming you mean when we don't get an understanding of each other's intentions. Um, let's see. Oh, he's saying forget marriage. I don't know what you mean by that. Kevin, you need to just sign on with us. So that's what we have. But so let's get to, I want to shoot some things out to you about some signs that this is something that I found on the internet, and it talked about signs of a guy is serious or has serious intentions for you as a woman. And I'm going to call a few out, and I'll tell you the ones that really stood out for me. Consistency, that's one. He gets a
Mm-hmm.
little shy around you. I don't know about that one. He makes plans and sticks to them. He makes you feel special. He opens up to you. He introduces you to family and friends. So consistency was one for me. He opens up to you and he introduces you to family and friends. Which of those do you think are, I don't know, top? Should be on
Well,
the
the first
list.
thing I think the first one would be consistency. The one thing about consistency is whether it's a good or a bad thing, it's going to be consistent. So when trying to I guess more read, if or gain a better understanding of the person that you are pursuing or the person that's pursuing you, the biggest thing that you can do is to pay attention to the consistency and when it's not consistent. It's funny that you asked that because from a male standpoint, I put it back on my significant other and I was just like, well, one of the biggest things I want to look at consistency. The biggest way you can from any standpoint. And so since we're talking to women at this particular point, the biggest way you can find out if a man is true to what he's saying is to look at his consistency. If he's doing something day in and day out at the same time, at the whenever whatever he tells you is truthful, or there's no deviation from it, there's no reason for you to also feel any type of way about it. Now we have to be careful about the intuition and the feelings, because sometimes intuition can be trauma. Sometimes feeling can be from past trauma. So it might actually send you in the wrong direction. However, you have to go into each relationship with an open slate and allow that person to show you who they are. And the best way for them to show you who they are is through consistency. The opening up, it depends on what it is. Like, to be totally honest with you, men play the game. If a man understands that a woman is emotional, then he's going to say emotional things at times where he feels like you're vulnerable, so he can
But
have
will
her
he be
in.
consistent? See, I think he will
But
slip
right.
up. Will he be consistent in being vulnerable to you?
So that's the biggest one on that list is going to be consistency, 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 consistency. And the other one that's higher than that, which I would venture to say, outside of infidelity or being cheated on, one of the biggest, well, and but under consideration and under love, I'm gonna say under love and being in consideration, I'm gonna put a slash. So we're gonna put a slash. So love, consideration. Under that, before you get to consistency, is going to be communication. And that's consistent communication. Is communication effectively and from the standpoint that you can feel the interest, not that you have to guess what person's intentions are. One thing in making sure somebody's intentions matches your attention is if what they're communicating to you matches what you're feeling, and it doesn't put you in a place where you have to guess or question it, or I don't know how I feel about it. If you ever get to that particular point, you need to have a conversation. If that conversation comes to no end and you don't get the result that you're looking for, or it just wasn't beneficial, then you're probably in the wrong place with the wrong person.
I like what you said about um, our intuition and feelings can come from trauma. So we have to be really careful that we've not bought things. And I know it's easy to do and it's natural. It's a natural thing to do
Mm-hmm.
if we don't heal, or I won't say heal, if we don't get an understanding of our trauma
Mm-hmm.
and that it's there. If we don't, if we play with it and try to avoid knowing that there is something there that we need to work on, that intuition and our feelings can be from the last relationship, or from childhood, or from some
All
just
from child,
just
right? All
anything.
from
A lot of
childhood.
it from
Yep.
childhood. Yeah, that we, because we didn't learn how, we weren't for the most part allowed to communicate when something traumatized us.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, you didn't talk about it. Um you didn't get a chance to resolve it,
Mm-hmm.
to have that clearance and that peace of mind from it. So I think it's so important that we understand each other's intentions, because it can eliminate a lot of brokenness that comes with breakups. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, as I said earlier, I truly believe that there are many people who've decided to walk the other way, not because they didn't love each other, just because they did not take the time to sit down and have effective communication about what got us here. How did we start out? What did we miss out on? What did we not communicate? What is it? What love language am I not meeting here? That I don't know about, either because I've been oblivious to it, or you've not allowed yourself to be vulnerable enough with me so that I can see you through it. Because sometimes a reaction, if I understand why you are reacting, then I
Mm-hmm.
can help you respond better, because I know, and I will be less offended if I know that it's not about me, it's about your trauma, and
But
that
I
something
think
I'm
Auntie,
doing.
I think that's part of, and this is what I was going to touch on next. Is sometimes not sometimes, but for a lot of us, we don't know. We don't know ourselves well enough to be in a relationship where we can communicate effectively what bothers us, what our triggers are, and they become so. I won't say mundane. They become shallow, and when I mean shallow, is our triggers are shallow because we attach the triggers that everybody else has. And what I mean by that is, oh, well, I've been cheated on. Yeah, I mean, yeah, who likes cheated on? So we should all be this way. We should be negative, and we don't need dudes. We can just do this, and then we want to do for sex, then we'll just go have sex with them and go on about our lives. Whatever the male may say, because there's a lot of men that just off the premise of maybe their fathers, their grandfathers, and experience, they don't trust women. So you got to think about it. If you're coming into a relationship and both of y'all don't really trust the opposite sex, but y'all trying to have a relationship, what are y'all doing? Like, why you're going to create more trauma? Like, you need to take time and you need to take self inventory. You need to do an appraisal on yourself. Like, how did I get to this point? And let me give you an example of that. Growing up, I won't say we were the most well off. I mean, there was trauma for different reasons between my mother and my father going through a divorce and abuse and things of that nature that were taking place in the home. So once they actually divorced, there wasn't this income. There was a financial hardship during that period of time. So one of the ways my love language was developed, and I can speak to it because I saw what my mother was able to give because of it. She didn't have any money, but one thing that she would do was be affectionate. One of my top love languages is affection. So that's one of them. Another one is surprises. It's not one of my top love languages because I don't care about the gift itself. It's more so the thought behind the gift. Because when you don't have something to give and you give anyways, or you create something to give based off of whatever you have, that's more important to me. I can't express how hard it is to come and I'm dating. I've been in the dating scene before. That's one of the hardest things for me to explain to someone else, to a female, that hey, one of my love languages is surprises. Doesn't mean I'm a female. It's because my mother didn't have gifts to give me. I didn't have all these other things to substitute for it. I just knew she was showing love by saying, okay, this is all I can give. So this is what we're gonna do. Like my birthday, I didn't get any gifts. She just took me to the movies, saying that we were going to Sam's Club. We walked by Sam's Club and end up at the movies watching Vampire in Brooklyn. Vampire in Brooklyn is not one of my favorite movies, just from a sentimental standpoint. And sometimes those small things that we remember as children, we're going to carry that develop our love languages. Sometimes the princess mentality, because women do understand that love is giving. Like if you give me a gift, that means you love me. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. To be totally honest with you, I understand that is a love language, but it doesn't verify the love that he has for you. A lot of these dudes are using those things to be able to say, I am showing you love or giving you love so they can get your buy-in, and that way they can use you. Truthfully. That's just how I've seen it happen. Another one of mine is time spent. If you don't have anything to give, then just spend time with me. And that was one of the things that my mother could do. And I think part of it happened because she had broke her ankle for a period of time, and then we went through moving and a lot of other things. So it was like all I had was her, so it was a lot of time spent. But that developed into one of my love languages. And I say all that to say this: if we can't go back and revisit how we came to those love languages, we can't express it to anybody else. So it's important that we take the test. It's important that we understand that the world doesn't revolve around us. Like it doesn't matter what I want to happen, when I want it to happen, because it probably won't happen that way. But as long as I'm purposeful and intentional about the time that I do spend, maybe I can get something out of it, even if it's a bad situation. Even if this is a learning season where this person is in my life for a season, let me learn from it, but it's not wasted time, because you might be preparing for the person that God has for you. But if you continue to be in a season that was 5 years past due, then how you gonna get what God has for you?
Wow. What about the people who, and this is some, I may have to bring you back to talk about trauma, because there are a lot of people, a lot of us who just don't take enough time to deal with the trauma, and we keep going in and out of relationships, marriages, um, and we just keep running the hamster cycle. So, what? See, how can I say this? What about the people who are incapable of being loved? Like because it exists. Like you can love someone. I remember seeing this post. This is a good way to put it. She loved him, he didn't. You get that? She loved him, he didn't love him, is what it was saying. She
Oh,
loved
yeah.
him, he didn't. And vice versa. He loved her, she didn't. And sometimes you can love people, but if you don't love yourself, if you don't know your worth, the value, man, that kind of love will kill you trying to love someone.
That doesn't love themselves. It will,
Drain you.
I'm not saying it's the wrong thing. I would just say it's a God thing because nobody on this earth can change another person. It's a personal choice for the person that doesn't love themselves or whatever it is that they're dealing with to deal with that on their own, and you have to allow them to do that. One of the biggest detriments and I put it plainly, one of the biggest detriments of being a woman at times is you think you can do that because of your nurturing nature. You think that you can just love somebody into a different place. And correct me if I'm wrong. Now, yeah, I've never seen that in the Bible. No, I've never seen that in the Bible. I've never seen. I'm gonna take it a step further. Even God says you have to make a choice to come to Him. So why is it that we think from a fleshly standpoint that and I understand it, but that's one of the biggest detriments because that's when time is wasted. Women spend years and years and years expecting change from a man, opposed to accepting that man for who he is. And if it's not who she wants, then it's time for you to part ways. Time does not validate. Time does not validate the relationship. It doesn't validate the love. It doesn't validate being loved correctly or being in a healthy relationship. Time does not do that. It just doesn't. The validation is from the love itself, because let's not forget, love is an action word. Like, I know we've heard it before, but love is an action word. If you go back and read the actual definition of it in the Bible, you have something to do about it. Like, it's something that you have to do. It said God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Like, it was an action. You can't love without action. You can't love without giving. You can't love without sacrifice. You can't love without forgiving. And sometimes in situations where you don't know how to love yourself because you haven't forgiven yourself for whatever it is, whatever reason that it may be, that you need to forgive yourself, because as it also is said that you have to know how to love yourself before you can love somebody else. Otherwise, it's just we just gonna pray about it, because at the end of the day, you can't give something you don't have. So you have to obtain it first so that you can get it. Like, you have to understand what it is that you're giving. And if you're devoid of love as an individual, then if whether you be Christian, a part of the Nation of Islam, whether you be Buddhist, whatever your belief system is, you have to get to a point where you understand that you're willing to honestly be sacrificial. And what I mean by that is love is sacrificial, because there are going to be times when you have to let go wrongs and things that people have done to you, and you have to let go of the things that you have done to yourself or the people around you in order for you to cascade the love that's going to be beneficial and healthy to be in a good relationship, in a long-term relationship. And if you never really get to that point, you're going to always battle with it. And life is already hard enough. Like, one of the main reasons for a broken relationship or divorce, as I was doing some research, was trauma. Not only trauma, but also life itself. Like, you have this anxiety about the life going on around you, so you put your relationship to the back burner. And once you put your relationship to the back burner, you try to go pick it up whenever you feel it's convenient for you to go do it, it's not going to be the same. You're starting to cause trauma. And what's going to happen is that person is going to now, once y'all break up, they're going to move forward and say, hey, I don't know if I'm going to do this, because people just want to do what they want to. They like, you're in school, you're in nursing school, or you're in some type of career that keeps you moving all the time. They're probably never going to talk to somebody else that's either a part of that career in nursing school, doing whatever it is that's taking up all their time, because now they're traumatized. And without the consideration, you'll never see it. So you can never change your behavior, because you're not being selfless enough to understand how selfish you're being.
Right. Right.
So
I totally get it. I totally get it. I totally. Let's see. I want to make sure you said something. I should have wrote it down. Utilize
I do
the
have. Well, let me touch on one point, Auntie, because
okay.
I've noticed this phone battery is crazy. It's really dying. But
That's
so
okay. We're
I
going to
would.
get off anyway, but I'm going to have you back to talk about more of this and the trauma, how trauma shows up in our relationships, and
Mhm,
how we can help each other through that without losing the relationship or ourselves. Because the goal here for me is not that's just one goal. I go back to there are so many people that have gone their separate ways, not because, and they're going to continue to do that if they don't
mhm,
stop and deal with themselves. And for me, you guys, I'll say I have put the work in. I continue to do so. I will continue to do so. And this year, I realized I've said for so long that I've heard for so long that it's you. Whatever is happening, it's you. Whatever is happening, it's you. Whoever you find yourself with, there's something in you that attracted. There was an attraction there um, that brought you to that person, but it doesn't have to keep you
mhm,
in that way. So I'm at a point where it is really difficult for me to be offended or to be angry with people. I can walk away and still love you. I can walk away and still like you because I know that it's not about me, whatever it's happening. And so I can say that, boy, it is so freeing to be here, to just go through life and know that this is life. And in
mhm,
this, things come, they go, people come, they go, people change. People don't change. I just don't try to force it. And I have stopped reacting and I've started responding based
mhm,
on my intentions, not just for a relationship, but for my life. And that's peace.
mhm.
That's peace. And so you have to put the work in. And I said that to say we need to talk about trauma. We need to talk about ways that you can that it can dealing with the trauma can change not just a relationship but a marriage, which is one of the greatest relationships to me. A marriage, it can change it. Go ahead.
So actually, I'm gonna tell this story, and I get it's gonna be a little bit of a prelude to what we're gonna talk about when we're talking about
Okay.
trauma on the next episode that I'm on. But I'm
Okay.
gonna use the story. You know who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna mention the person's name because yeah, she might get a little sideways about it. But you
Okay.
helped with the wedding. You were at the wedding. I just say the color. One of the dresses were purple.
So
And I say this, I'm gonna say exactly what I told her. I'm gonna say it now. And I said, I never really liked the guy. And the real basis of that is because after one conversation with him, he was pretty much expressing to me his past, and I'm not holding anyone's past against him, but it didn't sound like past. It sounded like this just happened yesterday, and you were so accustomed to doing what you were doing, and it was so egregious that it was to the standpoint that you couldn't have changed just that fast, jumping from out of one marriage and now moving into another one just because you said that you had changed. And I told because the person that I'm speaking about has been through trauma. Not on like the trauma, most of the trauma came at childhood. Majority of the trauma came at childhood for different experiences. And I
right.
said, I've never told you this before, but I'm telling you this now. Okay. Not only did I not really like the guy, You didn't need anybody that you thought you needed here. Like the person that you thought you needed here, you thought you needed somebody to match your energy. If you were as an alpha female, then you thought you needed an alpha male. If you thought that you were, punctual, on top of your stuff, doing this, doing that, working this job, trying to make a way, working that job, traveling, whatever the case may be, you didn't need that. But because you thought you needed it, that's what you went seeking. And you didn't seek God's guidance so that he can tell you what it is that you needed. And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, what you needed is you needed somebody to heal your trauma.
Ooh.
And the person that was going to be there to heal your trauma would be the person that God has for you.
Oh, wow.
That's what you need. You needed a person that you can heal your trauma, not somebody to match the energy that you have right now, because there are things that you're trying to hide. They're going to come out in the marriage. They're going to come out in the relationship. And if you have the same type personality that's willing to hide those things, they're going to treat it the exact same way that you treat it. So why would you go and find somebody with the same personality because you think it's going to be compatible? The compatibility is not the necessity. The necessity is literally what you need, what you're missing. That's the necessity, what you're missing. You have everything you need right now. What you needed is somebody to be able to come in and say, I know you've been hurt. I know that you've lost somebody near and dear to your heart at an early age, and that's played a part of your entire life. And because that's never been addressed and you've never dealt with a man to address it, it's always been covered up. And you always try to hide it to say, okay, that's not one of the things that I'm dealing with. But the truth be told, like we've been speaking about on this podcast, is a lot of how we develop love languages, a lot of the things that we become comfortable with, whether good or bad, can be attached to trauma. And sometimes you just need somebody to come in and say, I see you, I see that, I understand it. Now I want to help you get past it.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to put this out there and maybe you can help us later. I was looking up some stuff today for the show, and I was on the word intentions or intention. And I found something that defined intentions as medicine that heals a wound.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand that, and I did not have enough time, but I thought about basically what you just said, how the right person shows up and helps you see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
He or she allows you the comfort to open up, and not it's not that he or she says, I'm here, I see, I know, but I'm not going. It's that you hear that she or he is here, he's not going, he knows, and he still chooses me, or she knows and she still chooses me. And so when you said that, it made me think about, because I wasn't going to bring it up because I didn't quite understand how did intentions bring me to medicine that heals wounds. But it literally defined intentions as that. And I wanted more time to dig into it. Maybe we can address some of that. Because I think you're exactly right. We look for those people and we get those people in a sense that helps us keep those things buried.
Mm-hmm.
That
You're
trauma.
literally causing yourself more trauma. You don't even realize it, but you're causing yourself more trauma because you think you're doing yourself a service because you're like, oh, I got exactly what I've been looking for this entire time. But it's actually you're thinking inside of a box, to think outside of that box to what you need, and to understand what you need is to understand your trauma, to be honest about your trauma. Because another thing that I will say is once that particular person that's coming to help heal that is willing to accept it, and accept it in a loving way, not in a way that they try to hold it over your head. Like I've heard stories here in the last few months where literally people are dealing with health issues as a result of sex, and it's something that they have to deal with for a period of time. And this person is getting into a situation with somebody, but it's like, okay, but every time y'all get into it, they're throwing it in your face. That's not love. Nobody can love you that way. If they truly accept it, you'll never hear it again. They'll never use it as a negative connotation to keep you down. That's not love. So to think of that as love, to think that you open up to this person and you can trust them, they're showing you right now who they are and what they're willing to do. And you're willing to take yourself back to that trauma because of the emotional attachment that y'all have gained or created together is not worth it. Like, that's not love. That's not what love looks like. That's not what love is. It's literally what the word says. Like, it's acceptance. It's acceptance, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, and I'm still gonna be here.
Mm. And that's a beautiful feeling in a loving relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. So we'll stop there. So next discussion with Big Little Will, I guess, will be, I guess, dealing with trauma in your relationship, something to that degree. Because again, and maybe we could just do a short series on it, because trauma shows up in the workplace,
Mm-hmm.
in your parenting, in every part of your life, in just your everyday, the triggers. We have to know um, what we're dealing with internally, and we have to deal with it,
Mm-hmm.
and
You
we
can't
have to
avoid it.
learn. Right, you can't avoid it, because boy, it will follow you until it starts to lead your life. It will become your leader. Lowell, you have so much knowledge. I feel so honored and blessed. I can't wait. If you could do this next week, you just let me know if we could bring you
Oh
back.
yeah, I'm here. I'm definitely gonna be here. However much that you need me to be.
You want to do the trauma deal Tuesday? You want me to just go ahead and you send me the...
Absolutely. Tuesday. That's
Okay.
absolutely
So you
fine.
guys, you heard that. So we'll be back next Tuesday, 7:15. We're going to talk about trauma, how trauma shows up, not just in your life, but in your relationship, in your marriage, on the job, at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
So just in your day-to-day life. Um, so we will be back next Tuesday, 7:15.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'll
Thank
leave you with
you.
this. Maybe we can use this as a heading, but trauma is your testimony, and your testimony is somebody else's blessing. So the more that we don't speak about the things that we've been through, the more that we don't help anyone else. So,
Trauma is your testimony.
and your testimony is someone else's blessing.
Oh, wow. See, that's why we need what they used to call it in church, testimonies. I guess people used to stand up and
Mm-hmm.
talk about, we didn't keep the things that were challenging us were not hidden.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a bad thing to share those. So, okay, all right. I might have to get you to send me that again, because I'm a lot older than you and I can't remember all that stuff.
I can do that. I have no problem doing that.
Okay. Thank you, Lowell. Thanks everybody for your comments, your questions. Although we didn't get to all of them, we'll try to answer those, if you don't mind, on the
Mm-hmm.
comment sections for what the people put out there. But thank you guys for listening. Sorry we went a little bit over, but it's so worth it. We will be back on next Tuesday, 7:15. I'll get the information. I'll try to set it up sooner than later this time, and then we'll do it. All right. Thanks, Will. Be great.